You're enjoying Racing World. It's brought to you by Perspective Group. It's your global motorsport podcast show brought to you in conjunction with Race Control Magazine.
Well, it's the first week in February and it's time for Racing World to return. This is Racing World for 2023. Well, I decided over the summer months as to whether or not we would bring this podcast back in 2023. And yeah, I've decided we will. We'll certainly give it a go for a little while and see how it goes. There's a number of projects that my company has on the go at the moment, and hopefully with IndyCar, and there's some pretty big things there. I'm just not at liberty to share them at the moment, but if you live in New Zealand, hopefully I'll be delivering you some content that you've never seen before from the series, and it'll get signed off. To give you an indication of just how big that is, we're dealing with Mr. Penske himself, so that's how I fire up the food chain we are. So we're really looking forward to seeing if we can get that over the line, and very hopeful that we can. It's been months and months worth of work. Very grateful for the people that have supported it, both financially and mentally as well. So that's just something to look forward to. But if we look more at this podcast, yes, there's a lot of domestic things happening. It's the running of the New Zealand Grand Prix this weekend at Hampton Downs, a lot of kiwis in there, and maybe we'll do something about that next week. But for now, the attention is around IndyCar and Indy NXT, formerly known as Indy Lights. Both had content days recently. The content day in American speak to New Zealand speak is really a media day, and all the drivers attend that and you get quite a bit out of it. And equally for the Indy cars, they tested a track called Thermal Raceway, which is near Palm Springs in California. It's a privately owned facility. It looks absolutely amazing. One day IndyCar may go there. It's certainly not geared up as a spectator venue. It's more a club and car owners circuit, but man oh man, it's a phenomenal venue, that's for sure. But to kick things off, let's get straight to the chase and we'll go Indy NXT. And of course we have a Kiwi returning to that, a Kiwi returning in Andretti Autosport, and that is Hunter McElrea. Hunter had a rough start to the first part of last season, very strong second half, and this is something that we've seen from him in Indy Pro and in USF as well. So we're hoping for really good things from him this year. Big note in Indy NXT this year is the fact that they changed from the Cooper tyre to a Firestone. So that's going to be quite a change, and maybe it will affect, based on what I've been told, the way in which the car handles and things. So there's some learning curve there for everybody, and Hunter will have some fairly strong teammates. But one of his biggest allies, strangely enough, is his dad.
Who do you call? Augie? Your dad?
My dad.
Your dad? Okay.
Yeah, my dad for sure. Just because usually
He's been there, done that.
Yeah,
racing.
he knows the sport well. So I hate to say it, but I'll just say it anyway. There's racing dads, and then there's my dad. You know, my dad raced himself. He grew up in it. He's been through it. A drive perspective, he runs a team now. So he sees racing dads and deals with racing dads.
Yeah, he's not your typical racer.
No, he's very separated. He never gets involved. He lets me do it, but when I need him, he's there. So my dad's pretty much, he's like my manager, my friend to talk to. So I'll be pretty lost without him. So my dad's pretty much the, I guess, what would you call it?
Mentor?
Mentor in a way. I wouldn't say that much because you should see him after a few beers. I wouldn't call him mentor after that. But confidant, yeah. That's what I would say.
Did you do anything cool during the off season?
Yeah, I went home. It was good.
What's cool at home? I mean,
weather for one. None of this weather. This is not my friend. This weather. I'm not designed for this. But that's how much I like driving cars. Is that I deal with this weather. But it's sunny for one. Like I said, being on the water, jet skiing, playing golf, just hanging out with friends that I haven't seen. You know, I don't see my friends and family for. I didn't see him for 2 years. This year, which was terrible. Until this year, I didn't see my friends and family in New Zealand for 3. So just a lot of reunions, you could say, and just catching up with friends, golfing, and yeah, there's a lot of nice courses that I played, which is awesome. Really enjoyed being back home, and just kind of gives me more perspective, if I'm honest. Here, I feel like every day I'm just doing something and you're immersed in this stuff, and I never stop and think like, wow, it's really cool what I'm doing. Whereas when I go home, you have a chance to sit back and like, oh, this is where I grew up as a kid. This is where I did this and that. Like, I've actually come a long way type of thing. So it gives me perspective going home. I feel like I can actually properly reset when I'm in Australia or New Zealand for sure.
What's the best advice Michael's given you, and how big of a resource is it to have someone like him as much as he's got all this other stuff going on, I know he's still.
Yeah, he's very busy guy, obviously, with what's going on right now. I think everyone can see, but yeah, I see him a lot when the race is on, the best interaction I have with Michael is when I win, because he's very excited. So I see him the most when I'm winning, not so much when you're not winning, but no, it's cool to have him. Obviously, he's a legend. He's done pretty much everything in motorsport racing. He was Senna's teammate, like stuff like that. It's pretty rare. So he's obviously a very busy guy. I don't really talk to him too much, apart from the times where, like I said, I'm in victory lane or before the race or a pole or whatever. But it's just nice to be racing for this team. It gives you credibility as a driver. I feel like if you win and race for that team, it's cool. You see in their workshop, they have a big plaque of like all the races they've won, and like I put plaques on the wall. It's cool. So I think just for sponsorship and things like that, like you race for Andretti, oh wow, they know who that is. You know what I mean? So it's such a big machine, that team. There's so much resource. Michael's great for sure, but there's so many resources at your fingertips there, which is I'm a bit more used to now, but I'm glad you bring that up again, and it kind of remind me, because it's like anything, you kind of get used to things quick and then it's just normal, but it's definitely cool.
Hunter's always good for a conversation, and certainly the McElrea name across motorsport, both in New Zealand and in Australia and Australasia, and soon to be in North America with the Porsche series as well, is one that people need to stand up and pay attention to. Andy's a very smart character, been a great supporter of mine, and I'm a great supporter of his, so mutual admiration there. Looking forward to seeing what McElrea Racing does in North America this year, that's for sure. Got some great people around them. Talking to great people, one of Hunter's teammates last year was Stingray Rob, who's taken the last Dale Coyne seat, or the only Dale Coyne seat, for IndyCar this year. Stingray impressed a lot of times, very strategic move from him, did a lot of good things in the off-season, and it was very much not about money on the table, but where his management team placed him, and it was a very cagey move from him, and all credit to them as well. But I asked Stingray, because I had the chance to catch up on him, what he thought of Hunter.
Stingray, the question is kind of, you started to allude to it before, but a good friend of mine, Hunter McElrea, who was your teammate last year, obviously returns to Indy.
I recognize your voice.
Oh dear, that's a worry. It's the Kiwi accent, eh? For Hunter going back in, so rather than necessarily about you, but for Hunter going back into Indy next this year, what do you see as a driver that's not only raced alongside him, but in that championship, some of the hurdles that he needs to uncover to have a good year, shall we say?
I think that Hunter is one of the most talented drivers in the field, even though he may not at times know what to do with it. And it'll be interesting to see how he interacts with the Firestone tire. From what I've heard, it sounds like a different driving style is required than what was on the previous compound. And I don't know if that necessarily plays into Hunter's hands, but I think that he'll have to do a good job of reading into the data and adapting his driving style accordingly, being light on his feet. And I think that that'll play big dividends in the end, because he's got young teammates around him. I know that they may be talented, but they don't have experience in the series like he does. So it'll be up to him to lead the team a little bit in that sense, and where the car's setup direction is going to go. So it'll be interesting to see how he leads the team. I think this last year, we were all able to lean on each other a little bit because we're all in a similar boat. Matt Brabham obviously had a lot more experience than any of us, but there was lots of talent in the engineering room at that point, because we were all at a similar level. We could push each other every session. And so it allowed us to adapt the car to our individual driving styles rather than start from ground zero and figure out which direction to point the car.
And then just personally for you, looking ahead to your season, I guess one of the biggest things, and maybe one of the most exciting things, because you've talked about having the practice already, will be when you get to St. Pete in that very first pit stop.
Yeah, I think it'll be interesting. It's like parallel parking a car at 60 miles an hour. So we'll see how that goes with 26 other cars around you in a airport runway. It is an exciting series. So I think that I'll learn as we go, but I definitely have some things I need to work on already.
Well, I hope you enjoy your parallel parking skills, and look forward to seeing them in action at St. Pete.
Thank you.
I think we're going to see some quite good things out of Stingray Rob this year. It's a name that just may be worth keeping an eye on. Dale Coyne's always been one to find talent, so I don't think that there's anything different there as well. And if you think of the names that have been through there, Sato, Grosjean, Alex Palau, it's not bad pedigree, so maybe we'll be adding Stingray Rob to that. And he certainly spoke very highly of Kiwi Hunter McElrea. Now, turning the attention to the NTT IndyCar Series, and of course we've got 3 Kiwis this year with the new Kiwi in the pack, Marcus Armstrong, and he landed that seat, of course, at Ganassi, and that's a great seat to have, deserved as well, bringing a host of skills from the F2 world and from Europe with him, and it's just very interesting to see what he thinks it's going to be like to adjust to, and had the chance at the media day, the content day, to be able to catch up with all the Kiwi drivers, and we started out with Marcus.
I think fundamentally I need to get on it straight away. I have all the information in the world, really. I've got, obviously he's won a championship, Scott's won more than a couple, and then Marcus won the Indy 500. So it's a very accomplished group, and I have all the information to learn from, which is really cool. So I just need to hit the ground running, do well immediately. That's my target, and to maximize myself from the beginning. Obviously, I understand how competitive this championship is, and I need to learn a new car with limited test days, but that's part of the challenge. And like I said before, the organization and the strategic, view that Ganassi has, I think it's going to help me for that. And yeah, I hope that we can hit the ground running and then see what we can do afterwards. It's funny when I talk to people around the factory because, they talk about when they arrived at Chip Ganassi Racing, and I was like, oh yeah, I wasn't born yet, but cool. A lot of people have been there forever. So, so much experience and so much knowledge, which is exciting because I'm a fan of the sport as well as a driver. So I like to learn everyone's stories. Also, my teammates, I haven't really spent much time with them, but just understand where they came from and how they sort of grew as drivers. It's really interesting to me. And the engineers as well, they all have a lot of history. Certainly my engineer, Eric, has been there, done that. And it's cool to hear the stories, and I draw inspiration from that. I think that everyone is very, very open, and it seems like racing is a lifestyle as opposed to a job. That was sort of my first impression, which is a real positive thing. There's no such thing as work hours. If you need to stay in the office till 10, then you'll stay in the office till 10, and no one's going to ask questions. And that's really quite unique. And again, it's something that excites me because everyone's as committed as I am, I feel. To answer unseriously, I think it's funny that no one understands my accent when I'm walking around Indianapolis. People think they speak to me like I'm French or something. They speak to me like I'm Pidgin English. So, so that's been kind of an interesting experience. I haven't stopped hearing about how fantastic the whole experience is. And I'll be fortunate enough just to look at it from a wide perspective and look at how everyone approaches the race. And I can probably even learn a few things for the rest of the season and my own campaign just by how everyone approaches it. And I'll have a lot of time just to chat with people and understand what it's all about. So it'll be awesome.
Then I thought, because I had the chance and been able to speak to other teammates or other drivers in the NTT IndyCar Series, I'd pose the question to a couple of Armstrong's former drivers that he raced against in Europe and F2 and everything. And I started out with one person that had some quite good headlines last year for the Rahal team, and that was Christian Lundgaard.
I've raced with Marcus. Marcus was my teammate in 2020. We had a great season. I think it's great for him to come over here. I know he'd been looking at coming over here for a while, and I think we will see more Europeans come over. When, I don't know. Hopefully soon. But I mean, the F2 car and the IndyCar are similar but different. The IndyCar is just a beast to drive. I think the biggest difference is not necessarily the weight, but the endurance. It's a 2.5 hour long race where you're just doing qualifying laps the whole race with refueling. So you would run the tank empty, and then you'd come in, put new tires in and you refuel the car, and you go out there, and it's certainly not the same beast you drove 2 laps earlier. And that's what makes it tough. But it's super fun. So I hope he enjoys it.
Then, of course, as it's come out, Marcus Armstrong had a certain flatmate for quite some time and shared quite a bit of time with him and seems to know quite a bit about him, and that's Cameron Eilert.
Christian, less so, like we've known of each other for a long time. I spend a bit of time with him, but Marcus I lived with. I know the ins and outs of that man a bit too well, really. Unfortunately. But no, he's a lovely dude. And he's doing he's not doing the ovals, is he? So it's a bit, I'm sure there's another step for him to learn when he comes and does that. If he continues, he may not like it. He may be afraid of all of us now. No. He spends a bit of time with me, but he's in Miami, so. No, he doesn't. No, he dropped a couple of things off, including his car, but that's about it. I mean, he did stay in my place for 4 or 5 days in December, but I guess that denotes his living with me. I mean, he can take it if he wants, but I know I'm cool, but I'm not that cool. It seems everybody loves you. Yeah, I don't want to have like an orphanage of European expats. Like,
Bruce, go ahead.
Did he leave you the keys to the car?
Yeah.
What kind of car?
Yeah. I have one that I definitely didn't drive.
I think Marcus will adjust to those things, and I think it's a great learning year for him. And the knowledge that he'll take from being around events like the Indy 500 as well will set him up very well for a second season when hopefully he does the full season. And I think that Ganassi's not stupid. They wouldn't have done this unless they felt that there was something there, and we all believe that there's something there and have done for a long time. So really, really looking forward to seeing how Marcus goes. A lot of pressure on that young guy. It's not like you're driving for a smaller team. You're driving for one of the big 3 teams, and there's a certain amount of expectation. But, this guy's capable of doing it. He's won races in F2, so I don't see any reason why. Now, speaking of Kiwis, of course, we get quite a lot of lip when we're up there from certain members of the media and other people about our accent. Personally, I don't notice it. I know Scott McLaughlin's come up against it a few times. So I had the chance when we had these Zoom conference calls with the drivers and everything, because there were members of the print media there, I thought I'd just give a little bit back for a change, and also show the fact that Kiwis really are, as McLaughlin will point out to you, punching above our weight.
Speaking of New Zealand, David Turner, sit up in your seat. We're coming to you down under. If you will, your turn to ask a question to Scott McLaughlin.
Well, yes, we do punch above our weight. There's no doubt about that, eh, Scott?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, and as you would have seen when you were down here, SVG in a sprint car as well, which is a pretty another punching above his weight.
Yep. Yeah, absolutely. He was incredible in that.
After the global success of Bus Bros, which, yes, we get that down here in New Zealand as well. And I'm
you get YouTube down there? Oh,
yeah,
God. No, Jake.
And I know particularly Jenna and maybe Bruce find our accent a little strange, and sometimes they need a translator for those sorts of things. But really for you, with all you do with Joseph, and it's fantastic stuff and it's great content and I enjoy watching it, but when do you switch from Bus Bro to Scott McLaughlin IndyCar driver?
Look, we have I think that's why our relationship's so good, because we openly admit to each other that we just want to beat the living daylights out of each other on track. And I think that's, I guess, helps our trust levels and how we, interpret each other and debriefs and whatnot. But I've always been, going back on like me hanging out and chilling, I've always been someone that enjoys life off the track, away from the sport. But I feel like I'm also one of the more dedicated in terms of my data and what I look at behind the scenes that I don't probably broadcast to the social media world. Look, ultimately, I enjoy just having fun and living life, but I know that this is my job, and I there's a time to switch on. And I am one of the most competitive people in the world, and yeah, I enjoy the outlet that Bus Bros gives me. But this is when it's game time, and I feel like I have a good sort of mentality when it comes to needing to switch over to the real stuff.
And then just finally, before I let you go, obviously for years, Dixon paved the way, if you like, for the Kiwis in the IndyCar series. And now with, you being there a couple of years, Marcus, who's, a product of our elite academy, joining the Ganassi squad for a part-time season this year, and McElrea and Indy NXT and that sort of thing. I think the statement probably that you reinforce to people down here is the fact that these dreams or goals, if you like, are achievable, and America is a great place to do it, isn't it?
Yeah, I think if it wasn't for supercars, I probably would have been over here a lot earlier. I think I've always wanted to be here in America, and I think the scene for a young driver right now is really good. I think you can earn a really good living here in America. You can live in a great part of the world, and also you race against some of the most competitive people in the world and some of the best teams on the planet. So I think what Hunter's doing, he's doing such a great job with it. He's come up through the F2000s and Pro 2000 and whatever. Now he's in Indy NXT, and he's doing a great job. I wouldn't be surprised if we don't see him in the future, because he's certainly got himself sort of embedded in the Andretti organization. So yeah, exciting stuff for New Zealand, but certainly something that I fully support more New Zealanders looking stateside than Europe.
And just quickly on that, it's not only New Zealanders in seats like you guys, but it's also the number of Kiwis that are involved behind the scenes as well. Even in Penske, you've got Malcolm Finch there and as a data engineer and that sort of thing. There's a lot of Kiwis floating around.
Yeah. No, there's I think even on the McLaren side, there's a ton of people that are at McLaren that are Kiwis. We always have like a Kiwi photo at the Indy 500 every year. So, and I feel like there's more and more people in that photo every year, to the point we're going to have to need like 3 or 4 cameras to take the photo. So, it's exciting for New Zealand. It opens a lot of doors, and I'm just glad that sort of the American scene starting to see not that they never saw it, but more just we do punch above our weight, like I said, and it's exciting for everyone at home.
Well, when Bruce and Jenna need someone to translate the bus bros into New Zealand into American, I'm available. So ready to fly at any time. And all the best for the test at Thermal, and look forward to potentially seeing you at St Pete.
Sweet, man. See you there.
Thank you.
David, Jenna says he speaks English. We understand what he's saying. So.
Oh, well, that's good then. That's good. Very happy.
We're good. No translation needed. Thanks, David. Good to see you.
Well, you never want to give up that chance to give a little bit of lip back, and also prove the fact that Kiwis we know what's going on, and McLaughlin certainly does that. And to Bruce and Jenna, they're highly regarded in the media circles in the US. For those of you who don't know, Bruce Martin writes for NBC Sports, amongst other things, and Jenna Fryer writes for AP, and she does the sports car racing, NASCAR, and of course IndyCar. So they're good, high-rated journalists, but yeah, you've got to give them a little bit back when you can. Right, that only leaves one person left, really, doesn't it? And that's Mr. 6-time IndyCar champion, Scott Dixon. I had the chance to catch up with him when he was in New Zealand. It was really good. We chatted for quite a while. He talked to me about this project that I'm trying to get off the ground, and has been a great supporter of it as well. So I was very appreciative of that, and some of the efforts that Scott has actually played behind the scenes to try and get this thing over the line, because it's certainly been lingering for a long time. And as I said, hopefully we'll have more on that. But I had the chance to catch up with Dixon, and just for him, it's the chance not only to have a new teammate, and he's had quite a few in his time at Ganassi because he's been there longer than everyone else, but a chance for the first time ever to have a Kiwi teammate.
We'll work in one question before we cut you loose, Sky. Let's go to David Turner down in New Zealand. David, go ahead and unmute yourself. You're on with Scott Dixon.
Hey, Scotty. I hope you had a safe trip home. You certainly missed all the storms here, that's for sure. Just looking at Marcus as a teammate for you this year, it's the first time that you've had a Kiwi teammate. But what do you think one of the biggest things that he'll have to learn to adapt to, having come from Europe and F2? You hear Callum Ilott talk about, various things in that world, and even Romain Grosjean talk about, the Formula One world. IndyCar is quite different socially with the fan base, isn't it, over those European series?
Yeah, I think there's a lot of differences. Probably the openness and how you work with your teammates is probably a big one too. Where, in Europe, I don't think that happens too much. Whereas, with at least our team, it's very open, and you're encouraged to work together. So that might be a big change for him. I would have said ovals would be obviously an eye opener, but he's not doing those for the first year. And then street courses, I think our form of street courses are a lot different than the form of maybe European street courses. So, there'll be a lot coming at him for sure. And especially it's fairly difficult these days because the testing is so limited. Yes, the rookies get a couple of extra days and some more tires, throughout the race weekends, but still it's nothing like what, I think most are used to. So it will be a lot for him in the first season. But I think the road course sort of package and driving style will and should be pretty similar to what he's used to. But yeah, looking forward to a strong season from him.
And then just secondly, just once the season kicks off, really, once you get past St. Pete, it all comes in a bit of a roar, and suddenly you end up at Indy GP, and then of course the 500. How much of that plays into your mental space about the fact that the 500 is getting very close, but there's still the championship game to play towards as well?
Yeah, you know, take them as they come. Obviously it's a bit of a slow start, but you know, I think for any driver, you know, that's the part you look forward to the most, is actually when you get to drive the car. So you know, I look forward to, obviously, you know, kind of that May period, and once it kicks off into the summer stretch where it's pretty flat out, I think is exciting for all of us. So yeah, Indy's its kind of own little thing, and a bit of an outlier, and obviously this year too, with, you know, Sebring 12 hour, and then you know, maybe Le Mans in the middle of it all. You know, it's could be a pretty busy time.
Oh, hopefully we'll get to see you at St. Pete, and all the best for the season ahead.
Thanks, man. Cheers.
Well, that concluded 2 days of what they called the content days, and they are valuable insights to people. It's good that the drivers do that, they buy into the thing, and I think that's great. And if you were there, and we were hoping to be there, it's a really good opportunity to be able to talk to the drivers, because they know they've got to do it and they can't run and hide from you, so it's even better. But there'll be other opportunities for sure. So now what happens, there's 2 days of on-track testing at the thermal track, which, as I've said, is just an absolutely amazing facility. What's it count for? Not a lot really, because the cars won't ever go there, they won't race there. Maybe long-term, one day maybe there'll be a race there. But what it does is it's a benchmark maybe to permanent road courses, and gives them a little bit of a handle on that. But as so many of the drivers pointed out during the content days, it's about bringing the team back together, rehearsing pit stops, treating it like a race weekend, and going through the fundamentals that you would on a race weekend. And I'm sure they'll probably simulate a race strategy or something like that. So there's a lot of valuable lessons to be learned. What do we take out of timesheets when we see them from there? Oh, as Joseph Newgarden put it, probably not a lot, but again, you don't want to be down the bottom of that timesheet. So if you are, there'll be some questions asked. So again, most teams treating it like a real race weekend, and I think it'll be great, and hopefully we'll have some reports for you online or on the Facebook page about that. And then of course, the next thing after that, bit of a gap, and then the season kicks underway at St. Pete. Of course, last year's winner and pole sitter, Kiwi Scott McLaughlin. So yes, Kiwis can punch above their weight, and he proved that last year, and that was an absolutely sensational drive from him, and I'm sure the pressure will be on him to repeat that. Now, I don't necessarily suspect that he will, but I think that he'll be on the top three, and that's my bet straight away. Coming out of the box at St. Pete is always a tricky one. Dixon's always struggled there a little bit. I think there'll be a lot of pressure on Armstrong as well. It's a very, very unforgiving circuit, and hopefully we will be there to report on that as well. So there's some, as I've said, some good things coming. But the NTT IndyCar season is all set to go. That kicks off March 5, and hopefully we'll be bringing you the podcast on a more regular basis, and maybe something else. But until then, thanks so much for all your support, all the emails that I do get from you, the likes, the shares, everything. It means a lot, and right now it's a pretty critical time for the survival of this thing, so I do appreciate it. Thank you very much for watching Racing World.